Hello, welcome back. As you can see, we'll just try and zoom in a little bit so you can see. We've got some really nice vibrant colours in the clouds, but we've got quite a bit of tonal changes going on because it's quite an active sort of sky, probably coming into a storm, something like that. But it's got some nice colour in it. And all the tones match nicely and it gives it some depth. So the next thing we're going to do, let me zoom back out, is we're going to have a look at this moon. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is got to remove this masking fluid carefully. Now, on most occasions, masking fluid does remove itself quite easily, but you do get the odd occasion where you can get a bit of a disaster. So just be careful when you're taking it off. Don't rub too hard. I tend to try and rub. I mean, really, you shouldn't really use your fingers, because the problem with using your fingers is the fact that you could be putting oil back into the paper, which is not ideal, because obviously then it causes some sort of resist, so the paint doesn't stick to the paper. So as I say, you can buy these little erasers, but just be careful with these that you don't press too hard onto the paper, because you could damage the paper that way. So, you know, either way, you've got to be very careful when removing the masking fluid. Obviously, the less time the masking fluid's on the paper, the better. I know it says you can leave it on for up to 2 days or 3 days, whatever, but I wouldn't really advise that, because the longer it's on there, the more chance it is that it's going to damage your paper. So there you can see we've got most of that off there quite easily. Around. Okay, smooth it with your finger. Right, that's fine. So now we've got the moon there. So what we've got to do now, if we look at the moon, it's not just a flat round shape. We need to give it that a little bit of depth as well. So we mixed some colour up before we dried the last section. So I'm going to use a number 6. This is an aquafine brush I've got. So I mixed up some cobalt blue and a little tiny bit of burnt sienna, and we've got this nice grey here. So I'm just going to move a little bit of it into this well here, clean my brush, take the excess water out, and just sort of mix that around so it gets slightly lighter, because we've got 2 tones in here. We've got some light tones and some darker tones, which again give it texture, and it's all the craters that you can see on the moon. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put this lighter tone on. So I'm just going to, take the excess again. So I'm just going to pick some of this up. Now I'm trying to go round in the, so all I'm doing is just doing some rough shapes like this, leaving quite a lot of the white of the paper as well. And I'm doing it in the shape of form, so you want it to look round like that, so not as many, it's lighter on the top as such, so that can be the centre. So I'm just sort of pulling these shapes, if you look, away from the centre, and just making little sort of shapes as you would imagine the craters on the moon would look like. Okay, so that's that one. Okay, clean my brush. Now I'm going to go back into there again, really give it a good mix so all those pigments mix up. Take all the excess paint off there, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add in some bigger craters, the darker colour. Now, as I touch where we've already put the light paint, they should blend in a lot better there. I'm just giving it a few little bigger shapes, bigger areas of craters there, what we can see on the moon. Coming down here probably a little bit, and then I think there's some more up this side here. Fetch some around this side here. So as you can see, they're all going to mix in fairly simply. So I'm just going to give the brush a good clean, and I'm taking off the excess and pulling. So taking the excess water out. So this is a couple of areas where I've got some hard edges and I don't want them. If I just tap along my brush and smooth them away. And there we go. They'll blend in to the background. We could do with some hard edges, but we don't want a lot. Okay. And that's the moon. So let that dry, and then we're going to discuss the trees. So we'll come back in a bit when that's dried and start on the trees. Okay, see you in a bit. Right then, welcome back. So now the moon's been done. Let's have a look, see if we can zoom in a little bit so you can see it there. Can you see? No, you can't really see it there. There we go. Okay, so got the moon, got some nice little shapes on there, so it's not just a flat round circle. So now we're going to attack these trees. So we've got some of the trees coming over the moon and the rest going over this area. Now the trees are in silhouette, and we're going to need quite a bit thicker paint. So I've started to do a mix. So because I want it dark, I'm going to use plenty of this, the French ultramarine. Okay, so I've got a nice rich colour there. Okay, let's clean that. And then what we're going to add to it is just some burnt sienna. Now by adding burnt sienna, I'm going to get quite a very, very dark colour, which is going to be near enough, as close as you're going to get to a dark brown or black as a natural colour, rather than using a false black. You could use a false black if you wanted, but I personally don't like them. This is a bit thicker paint, so I'm just going to put a bit of it on there, and as you can see it's quite dark. Need it a little bit darker, a bit more in there. Give it a good stir. There we go. So that's quite dark, as you can see there. Okay, so I'm going to use that colour. Now the brushes that I'm going to use for this are the mixing brush, a really good clean. I'm going to use the number 6 to start with, and then I'm going to use possibly a number 4 and the number 2 rigger for the really fine points. Now the biggest mistake a lot of people make with trees, they get one brush and they go up and they end up with really thick branches. The idea is to start off with your trunk fairly thick, and then as you stop at a certain point, change to a smaller brush, pick it up and then pull it back out with a thinner brush, and then in the end with the rigger brush, so that you've got everything there in place and it gets thinner as it goes out. Okay, so we'll do that first. Excuse me. And then we're going to attack the foliage, which will be on the top. Okay, so if you get your colour mixed, and then we'll get ready.